Recent reports have emerged in the United States that analysts have torn down a BYD Seal. In fact, this happened in Japan a few months ago. Analysts in Japan said Tesla should be worrying. Now, analysts in the United States are saying the same thing. They're saying the new BYD Seal is so good, Tesla is in trouble. Is this true? Do I agree with these comments? Is it backed by fact, or is this hyperbole coming from the whole Tesla leads, let's create sensational journalism? Well, let's have a look at some actual real facts here. The Seal, is it a good car? Yes and no. Now, we need to have a look at the journalists, what they've actually said, because tearing down the car is one thing, but driving it is something different. So let's have a look at both the teardown and what journalists are telling us about the new BYD Seal and the price, because pricing matters. If the Seal costs as much as a Rolls Royce, no one would buy it. But if it costs a lot less than a Tesla, well, that could be a very different story. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. And I want to say a big thank you to our Patreon supporters and our YouTube members this year. If you'd like to be a member, you can get access to some of our videos in advance. And if you'd like to be a Patreon supporter, that would really help support the channel. Thank you so much either way. BYD Seal. It has a structural battery pack. After Tesla revealed the idea, the concept of a structural battery pack, BYD went, you know what, that's a great idea. And they got to work. They basically created the same thing within a very short period of time. And they're now using their CTP, they call it, basically cell-to-pack structural battery pack. They came up with a different name than what Tesla uses, which makes sense. And they're now using it on a number of different electric cars. It's not only the Seal that uses that structural battery pack. So is it a good vehicle? Yes. I mean, it has BYD's Blade battery. That's a good battery pack, not expensive. It's not a world beater like a lot of people claim. People claim that it's a miraculous battery that can do miraculous things. That's not true. It's a very good battery, but it's certainly, for example, I don't think it's quite as good as the new lithium iron phosphate battery technology unveiled by CATL, and objectively speaking, it's definitely not. But it doesn't mean it's not excellent for the price. Price matters. BYD make a lot of money selling Blade batteries to other companies who also think they're good. So that says something in and of itself. Now, Wall Street analysts from Swiss investment bank UBS recently got up close and personal with the BYD Seal to compare it to a Tesla Model 3. Now, they weren't comparing it to the current Tesla Model 3, I don't think, anyway. Analysts at UBS tore down the Seal, and Wall Street analysts, well, they don't normally do this, but apparently they got people, experts, to do this, and they're saying that Tesla should be worried. Now, I just want to say right here, I do not agree with this. In fact, I believe this is nonsense. Now, is the Seal good? Yes. Should Tesla be worried? No. I'm going to explain to you why not, and I think it's very likely you're going to agree with me, because I'm going to give you the opinions of people who probably have a bit more merit to their thoughts than these analysts. But anyway, I'm curious to know what you think after I've explained to you. The Seal mid-size electric sedan made by Chinese EV giant BYD, which is of course backed by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, although they have sold a lot of stock lately, is described by UBS as a great Model 3 alternative for a fraction of the cost. Now, first of all, we have to debunk some of these phrases bit by bit. Is the Seal a fraction of the cost? Actually, no. The BYD Seal costs more in Europe than a Tesla Model 3. Not much, it's only a couple of percent, but technically it's more expensive. Now, it's actually not really more expensive. It's probably on par, because you've got to say, well, if one of them has these features, the other one has these. Things kind of even out between the two cars. But realistically, the Tesla Model 3 and the BYD Seal are basically pretty close to being on par in price in Europe. We don't know the price of the Seal in other car markets, but we do know the Seal has been on sale for a long time in China, and it's not selling very well. So even if Chinese consumers believe the Seal is good, or whether they do or not, we don't really know. All we know is they're not buying it. It's one of the worst selling new electric cars BYD has basically launched to the market within the last 3 years. It's been a bit of a flop for the company. That's statistically true. At this point in time, maybe BYD will be thinking, yeah, it's not selling here in China, so let's actually sell them everywhere else at really good prices. At this point in time, though, the price of the Seal is not It's not undercutting Tesla at all, not even by a single cent. So I'm not really sure why these analysts from Wall Street have ignored that reality. Anyhow, in a note to clients picked up by Business Insider, the bank said that tearing down the seal strengthened its belief that Chinese car makers are here to stay and they will dominate the global electric car market. According to UBS, the Seal rivals the Model 3 in many ways at a 10 to 20% lower selling price. Now, it's a 10 to 20% lower selling price in China, although the Tesla Model 3 outsells it significantly, but it's not cheaper anywhere else, not yet. Among the BYD Seal's advantages over the Model 3, analysts mentioned the larger interior space, rotational central cockpit screen, and 5G connectivity. Now, I should say it is true the interior space is a little bit bigger. I've looked at all the videos, looked at the sizing, a little bit bigger on the inside, but the Model 3's boot space is about 28% bigger. Much bigger boot in the Model 3. I believe it's 400 litres versus 591. So huge difference in boot space. Yes, the interior of the car is a little bit bigger for the Seal because actually it's a bigger car. It's around about a 5% bigger car. Packaging, though, probably isn't quite as good as the Model 3. Basically, the size of the car should dictate there's more interior space than there actually is. The bank said that when comparing power performance, cost efficiency, and energy density, the BYD Seal's electric system is in line with the competition despite being at the relatively lower end of the range, especially compared to the leading solution provided by the Tesla Model 3. Now, we need to address that objectively. The standard range version of the Model 3, which uses what is estimated to be around a 56 kilowatt hour usable battery pack size, basically the same size as the battery in the BYD Atto 3. Well, Tesla is getting 511 kilometers of or 513 kilometers around there of WLTP range from that battery. BYD actually has worse efficiency on the Seal. Efficiency is about 5 to 8% lower depending on the variant. So Tesla's Model 3 is actually significantly more efficient than the Seal. UBS also noted that BYD's cell-to-body battery technology enables more in-vehicle legroom, improved performance. Performance times are actually identical for the standard range models, lower manufacturing costs, and a low car profile which favors aerodynamics. The OCD of the Seal is actually not quite as good as the Tesla Model 3. So when it comes to aerodynamics, that's not true either. As you can see, I'm just bit by bit here debunking this report. Not emotionally here, just purely objectively. But the big bombshell is about to come in a minute. I'm going to reveal to you something that I think the analysts definitely didn't mention. Whether or not they're aware of it, they should have been. The floor carpet of the passenger cabin is directly above the battery cell stack, and the top cover of the battery pack serves as the floor of the car body, eliminating one more layer of aluminium or steel, said the analysts. This is a good way to build the car. BYD have done a really good job doing that. The only thing is the weight of the Model 3 is lower than the weight of the equivalent Seal. So that said, the BYD Seal actually comes with a bigger battery pack. Not a lot more range, not really any more range, but I mean, the battery pack is bigger. So it's sort of unfair to compare them weight for weight. But I don't think that you'll find the Model 3 is uncompetitive on weight. It weighs about 1,760 kilos, whereas the cheapest Seal is around 100 kilos heavier than that, around about 200 pounds. The teardown also revealed, though, that unlike Tesla, BYD appears to avoid investing in autonomous driving technology, opting to equip the Seal with a third-party Level 2 advanced driver assistance system instead. And here's where things start to get problematic. BYD have admitted that their advanced driver assistance systems, whether that's just simple things like autonomous, semi-autonomous driving, whether that's just general safety systems, is significantly inferior. In fact, Euro NCAP said the same thing. It gave, most BYD vehicles have scored low 70s to high 60s on safety assistance, meaning in comparison to Tesla, they are light years behind. BYD have even admitted that themselves. Journalists have said exactly the same thing. Numerous reviews from Europe and the UK have pointed out that the safety systems in the Seal need work, to put it kindly. In fact, I had a conversation with a journalist in Sydney at Fully Charged who reviewed the BYD Seal, I'm not going to say who they were, and said its safety systems were atrocious in comparison. Not me. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just telling you what I got told. Ultimately, UBS analysts said the BYD Seal is cost competitive thanks to its vertical integration, suitable specs, and volume scale. Now, before I go on, I should mention BYD are very well aware of this, and they are working to invest on their safety systems. Basically their ADAS systems. They're called Advanced Driver Systems, Safety Systems Technology. They're definitely working on that. They're very well aware that they need to improve that area, and they are certainly investing money on it. Should Tesla really be worried? UBS thinks Tesla should be. It says that BYD aside, other Chinese car makers have the capability to gain market share from foreign brands on a structural and continuous basis. Analysts said it's not unlikely Chinese will find success in the US in the near future after making significant progress in Europe. Now, here's what they quoted, and it's very strange that they said this without recognizing the structural tax differences. Chinese car makers currently have systematic EV cost advantages versus US European incumbents, while offering wider product lineups than Tesla and covering more segments, especially mass market, UBS analysts concluded. In Europe, Chinese EVs, they're about to flood the market, but they're not selling. Volkswagen Group CEO, he's correct. It's very clear to see why one of the reasons they're not selling, aside from the brand, is they're overpriced based on China. I mean, these analysts are providing you these fanciful numbers, which are great, but I often say on this channel, guys, there's a $7,000 EV in China. I'd love to have this, but they're not sold anywhere else. And if they are, they double the price. That's the case for Chinese EVs. In Europe, pretty much not everywhere, but it's in particular in Europe. Chinese EVs in Australia are pretty well priced. New Zealand, slightly, not quite as good, but pretty well priced. Israel, Thailand are very well priced. Europe, no, not at all. So are they going to flood the market and potentially sell a lot? They could, but they would have to reduce their prices significantly because in Europe there is a stigma around Chinese EVs. That's why they're not selling. Look at the chart sales numbers. The only Chinese manufacturer doing well in Europe is not BYD. In fact, BYD have had vehicles for sale there now for about a year and a half, and they're selling a pittance. It is MG. People believe MG is a British car company, and therefore they're willing to buy the MG4, which is, by the way, quite a good car. However, the stigma around Chinese brands still exists in Europe. That will be a significant hurdle the UBS analysts didn't point out. They also didn't point out the fact that Chinese EVs are not even cheap in Europe yet. Will they be? I think they will at some point. They're not yet though, because they're using traditional dealer networks to sell their cars. They're putting big markups on top of what BYD is probably selling it to them to, and that is a big problem. Now, is the Seal technically a better car than the Model 3? Well, no. That's an objective reality. There is not a single journalist in the world who claims otherwise. So is the Seal a good car? Yes, definitely. Should you consider it? Well, it depends on what country you're in and what the price is. We don't know yet what the BYD Seal price will be in Australia and New Zealand, but at this point in time, I don't believe the Seal is any kind of threat in any way to the Tesla Model 3 or any Tesla vehicle in Europe. Simply put, it's not affordable enough. It's the same price or slightly more expensive, and BYD is an unknown brand in Europe. Therefore, I don't believe this report from CBS or UBS analysts has a lot of merit to it. The other challenge here is reviews in Europe, reviews in the UK of the Seal. They haven't exactly been kind. In fact, they've been quite scathing. Top Gear recently reviewed the Seal and gave it 6 out of 10. One of the worst scores I've seen it give any car in the last 3 years. It was particularly scathing. It was fairly short. It seemed as though they didn't really have any significant interest in talking about a car because they felt like what they were going to say was going to be negative. Now, do I agree with that? I don't. I mean, I can't even say I've driven the thing. I drove a BYD car. I own one, the Atto 3. It was a pretty good car. For the money, it was a good car. Now, is it comparable to, say, a Tesla Model 3 in terms of the software, the driving experience? In my opinion, absolutely not. Now, do you get good value for money? Yeah. But Model 3 and the Seal, they're really different products. The software system in Tesla's EVs gets an average score on ANCAP of 94. That is worlds away from BYD's safety systems. The perception in China of Tesla is very different to the perception of BYD. BYD is sort of perceived more like Toyota, like a modern version of Toyota in China. Tesla is still actually perceived as being a more premium car. Now, is it? Well, that depends on the opinion of the person you ask, but that's the perception in China. I don't see that changing anytime soon. And by the way, the Chinese car market, it's 28 million cars a year. There's plenty of room for Tesla and BYD to disrupt the actual players who are going to fail over the next 5 years, 10 years. The car companies like Mazda, Subaru, Nissan, Toyota themselves, basically the entire Japanese automotive industry that still really isn't all that interested in selling electric cars. They're the ones that are the low-hanging fruit. They'll be the ones that Tesla and BYD will disrupt. Rather than BYD disrupting Tesla, I think that's kind of the wrong way to look at it. It's Tesla and BYD going after everyone else. They're the ones who should be concerned about the BYD Seal. Thanks for watching.